Hi there, my name is Abigail Morrison, and I am here today to speak with you about People First language and what it looks like and then what it should sound like. So, first off, let me start with what is People First language? When you think of special education, you think of disabilities and the students that need assistance. And the crazy thing is that 1 in every 4 people have some form of disability. Now, when you think about this, it's hard to put a true definition to what a disability is. And the thing is, there isn't one. There is not one true definition for what a disability is. But then when you think about what people first language sounds like, that is when you put the person before the disability and it describes what a person has, but not who that person is. So just because a person has a disability, that does not define them as who they are as an individual. And then when you really think, it emphasizes the person first, not for the disability, but for their abilities. You think about all these kids that we see in our hallways in our schools, and you think, yes, some of these students may have a disability, but look at what all they can do. So people first language really looks at the person as a whole, not for what disability they have. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky for me. I am a kindergarten teacher, and so when I think of students with disabilities, I think of it in a different way. My students they often come in to me at 4, 5, and 6 years old, and I am taking it from my perspective on this. And my students, most of the time, they don't understand what a disability is, and they don't understand that they may have one. Um, and to them, they don't see the difference. They don't see the difference like older kids do. And so when asked, what does it sound like in our school? Well, to me, that sounds a little bit different because my students don't know it yet. Most of the time when there is a disability of some sort, those students don't find out until they're in first grade or older. So to me, those students that get accommodations and get help, I oftentimes hear, I'm with the slow kids. Why do I have to go with a special teacher? Or why do I have a special teacher for this? Why can't I stay in the classroom? And then coming from the opposite side of what those other students see when they leave, I do have a student this year. He is considered nonverbal, and he does have devices and assistance and accommodations, and he has accommodations to help him walk and to move. And so oftentimes I see those other students, and I know that sounds bad, but his peers ask me, why is he different? Or they'll like whisper things about him. And so thinking about people first language, I had to stop and really evaluate myself on this sometimes. Um, and so not only what the kids say, but then as the teacher, oftentimes when we have a student come into the classroom in kindergarten with an IEP, there is no actual diagnosis yet. And so oftentimes they are labeled DD, learning disabled. They don't have a diagnosis. And so it is our job to kind of decipher through and see how we can figure out, what that is. So when it comes from a teacher standpoint, some of these things that get said, it's sometimes it's just because like there is no diagnosis yet. And so oftentimes it's what he or she has is DD because coming in from preschool, sometimes that's what it says. It says DD. And then he is nonverbal. He doesn't learn like his peers. She had brain damage. We do have a student this year. That's what some of these are actual things that have been said. And I have to own up to some of it because in my mind, I'm speaking to other teachers and I don't really think about what's coming out. And I know that's bad, but you have to be honest with yourself here when you're looking at people first language as well. And you have to evaluate everything. And so moving forward, how do we change that language? How do we make those changes to where it doesn't come across wrong? How are we professionally speaking? And as a future administrator, you think about that and how is it going to sound to other people? So along with this, instead of saying he has a disability, it's people with disabilities, or she has a learning disability and involve the diagnosis. He or she has a developmental delay. he or she communicates with his device or by signing, which is a student of mine, so I could change my way of saying that. And then he or she uses leg braces or a wheelchair. Again, another one of my students in my current class, and so that is another way of changing how I'm saying things. And then she had a brain injury when being born. And then another way, really to evolve our language, emphasize the abilities, what they can do, not what holds them back. And then like try really hard to avoid using any language that suggests something. I know in the examples they were giving us, avoid things that maybe suggest a disability. And then avoid using offensive language. I know they talked about dwarfism. Sometimes people take things differently, and each person has a different preference. So you really have to judge who you're talking to and how you're speaking to them. And then really, there is no difference between us and their people, and we need to make sure we really try hard we speak to everyone the same, speak to everyone like they are a person, and look past that disability. Even if they do have a disability, speak to them as a person, not speaking to them to their disability. And that's one thing I've really learned with my student who is hearing impaired. He's trying to learn how to read lips, and so you have to just speak to him. You have to speak to him like a normal person, and that's coming from a little 5-year-old. And so I know it's possible. I know it's hard, but everyone has to make the change with changing that entire language. And then when it comes to making that change, have respect for the golden rule. That golden rule, that's something I think I say to my 5-year-olds every single day. Treat others how you want to be treated, even with disabilities or not. You have to treat everyone the same. Avoid using those slurs. No kid needs to be called crazy or spaz or any sort of that. No one deserves that. And so just avoid those in general. And then one big thing that I read in a resource was those invisible disabilities. You never know when someone has something, and so don't be too quick to judge or to assume, and really watch how you're talking to people, because you never know what that person you're talking to may or may not have. And then the last thing that I think is huge is lead by example. It starts with you. If you, the principal, are leading by example, then your staff will follow suit. And you have to model what you expect. And so overall, when we are making this change, yes, it is difficult. Yes, some things come across they're not intentional, they're not supposed to sound that way, but it's a conscious effort to make a change with how we speak to one another and how we speak towards people with disabilities and how we associate them in the classroom and in the school as a whole. Thank you for listening, and then here are my references. Have a great day.